good to be back together today. Turn around and say hello to Noah and Amanda today. Hello.
Hello.
I can't wait till you guys are all back here with us. And we'll do our best to provide a stellar example of how to practice in the meantime, right? That's right. So let's go ahead and pray and we'll get started. Lord, thank you so much for just your goodness to us, to allow us to have the privilege of studying music and learning to teach and to minister in our lives by helping others to grow in many ways, Lord. And I just thank you for this time we have together to study percussion and percussion teaching once again. Please be with those who are away from us today, heal their bodies, and help them to be able to stay current on their assignments and get back to us refreshed and as soon as possible. Pray these things in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so if you guys back up a little bit in each direction, just kind of move your chairs out of the way, do whatever you need to. This is set for an ensemble last night, not today, so you can just move what you need to. Then, as long as we have kind of the 6 feet between us, we don't have to worry about the mask thing. So,
so we're really spread.
yeah, so that will help
Gladly spread.
help us all, I believe. All right, so let's go ahead and begin today. Once again, going over class objectives. And today, I'm going to teach you 2 new drills. You may have seen these on our course syllabus. And they're called the 8-in-the-hand drill and the accent drill. And these are 2 warm-ups. So over the course of the semester, we'll be working on a warm-up sequence that's good for each of the instruments, and this is a good way to start with snare each day. And you'll see in just a moment, it allows you to kind of reinforce the things with hand position and relaxation that we've been going over to this point. So after we do that, we're going to do some improvising with Gordon rhythm syllables in duple meter, first 5 functions. Who knows what I mean by the first 5 functions? Well, looks like we'll be going over that today as well. Study and experience triple meter functions. So we'll start to learn that and also demonstrate correct position in rhythm syllables while playing. So especially at the beginning here, pretty much all the playing we'll be saying these rhythm syllables along with us just to get us used to them. And also that's very helpful for students. Once they've moved and learned patterns and improvised with them, then to be able to connect them to reading the music, reading the rhythm patterns on the page, and it's just a way to unify everything that they've been doing. So it also is just good practice. It's one of the skills that just needs a lot of practice. So all the way through in our percussion classes, I would just have them say and play is what I call it. Say the rhythm syllables as they play, and obviously not while we're performing, but while we're doing drills and things like that, and then we'll get to the music as needed. All right, here's our class agenda for today. Announcements. Monday, don't come, I won't be here. You can come if you want, I guess it's up to you, but I don't expect all of us to be here. But do remember to turn in your practice time for everything up to Monday, and if you could do that by our class time, that'd be a help. Then I can look on and record that. So, yes.
What's the practice time?
So if you go on Canvas and click on weekly practice for week 2, it'll explain everything there. But the basic idea is trying to get at least 3 half hours worth of practice time. So those can be broken up more, but it needs to be at least 3 different times and at least the equivalent of 3 half hours there. Okay. That is for obviously your A for the week, and then there's a rubric that kind of describes if that's not possible, what levels everything else is at. All right. So I think. I just want to check. Is there anybody who's still waiting for this book here, or are we able to start using that? It's just coming. Okay. I brought an extra today in case there's anyone who needs one over the weekend. So. You 3 all have one? Okay, good. Because as you noticed, if you looked at the syllabus, we, even for this class today, we had assignments starting out of that book that we'll be going over. And this is, actually, this elementary drum method also has a second book, intermediate drum method. It's been around a lot of years. But the reason I still use it is because for group practice, it's not a private lessons book as much, but for group practice, It just sequentially goes through all the rhythms that you need and all the rudiments that you need, and for your playing, your snare drum playing, and students can very quickly, going through this method, progress to way beyond where they would just going through a band book that's not really written for them, right? Or a private lessons book. There's other curriculum that are great, but again, that has other purposes. Here we're just kind of learning to read and say rhythms, and we're learning the basic rudiments, just kind of getting the musical rhythmic side and the technical side as fast as we can. So by the time you're through this book, you will be able to play all the rudiments and rhythms that you would see up through high school music, not in marching band, but in orchestra or concert band. Marching band's kind of its own world. It goes a lot more complex on all this.
What's wrong with the bands on percussion?
Nothing's wrong with it. It's just sequenced along with how the brass and woodwinds learn. So if we were in, a lot of music educators are separating percussion out and then just bringing them in once a week or around concert time, because it's like strings. They just learn in a whole different sequence and have whole, completely different needs. So if your only option is to be together, you work with it and it's fine. But they can just progress a lot more quickly, especially on the snare drum side of things, than they do if they're just in with the group and working through things. So I had them in with the group playing mallets, but then I also had them outside the group working on drum technique separately. So yeah, good question. It's ideal, as with any instruction, to have a combination of full ensemble and like instrument or like voice rehearsals, and that's just the same goes with percussion. They have very different types of skills they're learning, and they can progress much more quickly in some areas than the winds and brass can. So it's the most efficient to have them separate at least some of the time like that. All right, let's go ahead and review what we've learned so far. First of all, our 5 R's, let's say them together. Relax, wrist, rebound, rhythms, and rudiments. And hopefully we all know what goes behind each of those words by this point. If not, make sure you get with me and ask, or ask throughout the class. So we've talked about, especially those first 3 refer to what we're trying to do while we're playing. So tell me a little bit about our stick hold, sometimes called the grip here. Just something that comes to your mind from our last class on Monday. Okay?
We should hold it about like 1/3, like from the bottom.
About 1/3 of the way up. And sometimes with students, you can put just a little mark on the stick there, 1/3, maybe a little abstract, depending on how old they are. They probably heard it, but okay, so what's 1/3, you know? In fact, some student sticks actually come with a thumbprint where they're supposed to put their thumb. So that idea is catching on more. But anyway, about 1/3 of the way up the stick is the, what do we call that kind of balance point where we contact the stick? There's a term for that. Do you remember? The fulcrum. Very good. So the fulcrum, and we're between our, is it like strings where we're kind of putting the tip of our thumb in, or does our thumb do something different? Flat, right? So if anything, the knuckles push back in against the stick, not pointing out away from it. And then where does our first finger contact the stick? First knuckle. Good. And you want just a little bit of space in there. Don't be squeezing it against your hand, or else there's nowhere for it to move up and down. And then what do the rest of our fingers do? Yeah, so the second one can kind of contact under the stick if you like, then the third and fourth are just kind of down there, but they're trying to not get in the way as the stick goes up and down. Later on there's some finger control things, but that's more advanced high school technique, and you don't have to do it to play anything. It's just for getting some rudiments faster and things. So we're going to think for this course everything from the wrist. Second finger will help on rolls. I'll explain that to you later. For right now, it just kind of is along for the ride, and then the other fingers are just relaxed by the side. All right, what do we want to do with our body position and some of the rest of it here? Yeah, if you think of a relaxed, tall singing position, that's great. For those of you who know that, feet apart, knees relaxed, shoulders back and down, torso elevated, not back slouch. I think of just if you have a string attached to the top of your head, just pulling up as tall as you go and then sitting there, right? Or with a kid who's slouching, grab a hair and just kidding. Don't do that, especially in your student teaching. Ways to get kicked out of student teaching. Harming students. Anyway. There was one time I accidentally threw my baton at a student, but other than that, no violence in 20 years. So. Well, I wasn't accidentally throwing the baton. I accidentally threw it at them. Is what happened. Because I was, and it was just like chucking it underhand. I was throwing it at my daughter, who was, we were just joking around, but it accidentally hit the girl next to her. So, but I mean, everybody was like part of it. It wasn't just like, oh man, I'm throwing it at you. You silly, I'm gonna throw my baton, yelling, whatever. I can't remember the exact context, but everybody laughed hilariously. So, I think the girl might have even caught it, so she was ready for it. But it's like, oops, I didn't mean to throw that at you. I'm sorry. I could just hear a parent call when I get home. You're throwing things at my daughter in school. Anyway, yeah, probably not the best idea anyway. Hopefully you don't have the experience I did in student teaching where one of your percussionists used his drumstick as a weapon to assault the person in front of him on the head. That was an interesting morning. Never happened after that for me, so I was just like, did that just happen? What do I do? In fact, I didn't even see it happen. I heard the huge reaction to it from the kid who was screaming and everybody around, so-and-so, I just hit so-and-so in the area. I was helping a trumpet figure out his fingerings or something at the time, but it was brass and percussion class combined, which again, percussion and brass have almost nothing in common, so that's not a natural pairing, but it was the best I could do. But, all right, I'm talking a lot. Let's get playing. So let's put our hands by our sides, lift them straight up, turn them over so that the back of our hand is parallel to the floor. And then let's stroke with right hand on a macro beat at this tempo. And just look at your third part, or second and third parts of the R's, your wrist and your reed thumb. And ready, play. Excellent. Good. And switch. Ready, go. Good job. You all already look like you know what you're doing as percussionists. That's awesome. All right, let's go ahead and go to a microbeat pattern now. So same tempo for the macrobeat, but we're thinking instead of do, we'll think do, day, ready, alternate, stickings, play. As we go faster, consciously relax and focus on keeping everything the way it just looked. And ready, play. Yeah, good job. And a lot of times we see people trying to get extra motion going. I'm not, I'm just seeing the wrist straight up and down on the sticks, so excellent. All right, let's talk about these two drills that we're going to go back to in a second here. So, warm-up routine, okay. But let's put them up here. Let's see, the 8 in the hand and accent drills. So 8 in the hand is a good way to start focusing on the 5 R's and just your stroke and your hand position and all of that. And the more you can get people to discipline themselves right at the beginning, the more you can get students to be their own teachers regarding their hand position and your relaxation, the quicker they'll progress. It's just one of those things that if you leave it to you to always correct them, that you'll be dealing with it for a long time. But if you put the responsibility on them, you know, like I just kind of went around the class asking you guys what it should look like, then they're able to use these drills to reinforce proper practice habits instead of improper. So then you have to unlearn everything you learned, right? So let's go ahead and do 8 in each hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we're going to do 2 sets of 4 in each hand, and 4 sets of 2, and then we'll get down to ones, and we'll go double speed. So just watch it one time. I'll count it out as I'm going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There, then then we go to a faster tempo at the end. Other than that, it's all the same tempo, and we're just doing the equivalent of, if you think of these as do days, 4 beats in each hand, and then the equivalent of 8 beats on each level, where you're doing 8s, then 4s, then 2s, then 1s. So if you get messed up, just watch me. Let's see how we can do here. And I'm purposefully not writing this out for you because I'm getting you used to learning by rote. I'm getting used to helping you get used to thinking by rote and seeing how to teach by rote as well. 2 and ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Watch your hands. 4s. Watch your hands. 2s. Relax your fingers. 1s. Double. And stop. And we always do one extra just to stop. Otherwise, it just feels like a lurch at the end if you stop right before the downbeat. All right, that's the idea. So after you do it once slow and relaxed, speed up the tempo. 2, 3, ready, go. Okay, so we're on 2s right now. I'm calling out the numbers as we go. All right, so right, up. That's what I mean by 2s. 2 strokes on each. 2 and ready, go. And 1s. Double it. Yeah, good. Faster. Da, 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 da. 1, 2, ready, go. Stay relaxed. 4s. 2s. Now, when we go to the fast notes, your hands can already move this fast, and even fairly young kids can. This is not something that's really hard. This would be equivalent to 16th notes at about 108. How many years is it going to be till the rest of the band can play that fast? Probably 3 years at least, right? So like I said, percussion learns in a different sequence, and they learn different things first and other things later compared to other instruments. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. And this time when we get to the fast notes at the end, the do to de to do to de to par, really listen across the group. Try to line up our sound. Just precise right together, almost machine gun-like, instead of a galloping herd of wild horses. All right, 1, 2, beginning, go. 4s. And you'll notice I'm keeping my snares off for right now just so I don't kill your ears, all right? But I want you to hear the sound of my drum different from the rest of yours. We will pass the snare drum around and let you guys each take turns on different days as well. And then you can hear yourself compared to the group. That's one way that the teacher can know, get some individual feedback, either 1 or 2 students a day, just kind of trade it off, playing the snare instead of the pads in a drum circle setting like ours. All right, let's learn the second drill. This is called the accent drills, and you're doing exactly what it sounds like. You're going to accent, it's 4 patterns, and you're going to accent the first of every 4 pattern, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. Now when we accent, it's very important to not think of hitting harder, but think of starting higher and playing faster. If you think of hitting harder, what's going to happen? Tension, exactly. Yep, that's exactly right. They're gonna grip down on that stick and smack it, right? So that means if we're gonna play faster and higher, we need to prepare right before that. We need to lift it up a little bit. So if I'm gonna start a 4 pattern with my right hand on the accent, it would start higher than the left. And you'll notice how on the note before, I'm kind of lifting it up, I'm preparing it. All right, so everybody try that on your own. Doesn't have to be together. Just that idea of accenting with your right hand for 4 pattern, then start with your left hand and accent with that for 4 pattern. I'm going to go around and just watch as you play. Go ahead. Good. Try with your left hand now. watch that pinky. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Everybody's is if they're right-handed. Your offhand always has a hard time. All right. Are you squeezing with these fingers under the stick? Make sure they're giving some room under the stick there, more like that instead of like that. Okay. Try it again.
So we do the right hand, I know.
Good. Now start with left hand. That's it. All right. Now we're kind of collapsing into this thing. Remember, we want the hands turned over, so that's going to turn our elbows out a little bit by the sides of our bodies and more instead of in front of our head. Okay. Go ahead. Good. Left hand first. Same thing I said to him. Make sure you're not squeezing down on the nose with your fingers. I think you're staying pretty loose, but I think quite well from here, so just check that. All right, good. Now, here's the tricky part. We're going to do 4 sets of accenting on the first note of the pattern. Then we're going to switch to accenting on the second note. So you're going to switch to your opposite hand. Then we're going to accent on the third note, and we're going to accent on the fourth note. So 4 sets of each one. It goes like this. Just watch and listen once. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're alternating each set of patterns. You're between accents in the right and accents in the left. All right, so let's try the first set. We're going to separate it because it's switching from one to the other that's the tricky part. All right, so just do 4 patterns where you accent with your right hand. Ready, and go. Good, and we'll stop. All right, now start with your right hand, but accent with your left hand. Like that. Everybody try that once on your own. Okay, do we need to slow down a little bit for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, I started a little bit too quick for this. I apologize. So let's go da 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 that tempo. So da, da, da. Just jump right in when you can. We'll do a bunch of times. Yeah, excellent. Yes. And then the third one, accent on the third of the pattern now. Third note. Jump in when you can. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. And on the fourth note, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Make sure, Taylor, you have your hands where they would be if you just brought them up from your side. They're kind of drifting in front and collapsing there. And that's common. Your students will do the same thing. But that turns the hands over and makes it so that the sticks are going this way instead of this way in your hand. So that, especially as we get into other rudiments, it won't work as well that way. All right, here we go. All 4 sets. 2, ready, go. Now 2. Now 3. Now 4. And then do with a pop. Yeah, that's it. All right, questions about that? I believe we have it written out, and if you just look in our resources, and I'll make sure when I go back that it's just straight 16th notes where you accent the first one, the second one, and third and fourth. So I think you guys can probably picture that. And you want to do the same thing with that. Start it slow and relaxed, and then just keep throughout the semester upping your tempo. So eventually, you know. It's that type of thing. You're just relaxed, and it's not a big deal. All right. So little baby steps at a time. A lot of percussion is just doing the same thing, gradually getting faster and faster and faster. Because once again, from day one, we can get a perfect tone on the instruments as long as we hold the mallet right and use the right stick or mallet. Tuning, Tiffany's the only one you can tune. The rest are what they are. So a lot of what we do is physical coordination and getting faster at things. So you will see yourself if you practice relaxed and practice accurately, just gradually getting faster and all this stuff. So any questions about what to do for 8 in hand? Accent drill? Okay, so each time now, instead of coming and sitting down and talking, I want you to come get your pad and then run through these drills, stretch and then do your warm-up. So I'll start posting a warm-up routine from now on. And unlike other directors, they'll tell you exactly the opposite for different reasons. I always taught, almost from the very beginning, my students to go through an individual warm-up routine the second they got to class. It bought 3 to 5 extra minutes of practice, and it got them ready for the rehearsal. And maybe in my situation, I didn't have as many students. Maybe it'd be harder if it was a class of 60 or 80 kids, I don't know. But it worked really well for me and helped. It was almost like a private lessons approach where you taught them a warm-up and they came and they did it every time, you know. And then we would do different warm-ups with the whole group once it was time for that rehearsal to start. So besides that, you guys can definitely do it because you're not 6th graders, right? So as soon as you get here, just get things out, go through your stretches and warm-ups, and then we'll get started on class time as quickly as possible. Well, you may be seated. Let's take a little break here. And let's pop back to our agenda here. So we now learned our warm-up routine. Let's review some things with duple and triple meter. So remember, when we're talking about the labels in the Gordon system, we're talking about at the beat level, not the measure level. So when we say duple meter, what do we mean? What's the word duple mean? Two. So we're splitting the macrobeat into 2 parts. So if all our macrobeats are due, what's the syllables for the 2 parts? Splitting it into 2, the microbeats we would say. Due and day. Good. So let's just say dues and due days, 4 macrobeats of each. Ready, say. Do, 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 do. Due day, due day, due day, due day. That easy, right? Let's add the 3rd beat, tempo of beats, or the 3rd beat levels, the way I refer to it. So we're going to add a ta after each of the due days. So do, ta, day, ta. Let's practice saying that and then gradually faster. Ready, go. Do, ta, day, ta, 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 do, ta. Yes, and just like anything else, the more we practice it, the faster we'll get. But really, the syllables are designed so there's very minimal movement in your mouth. That's one of the things I like about this system. For you vocal people, you'll appreciate that a lot of it is open, warm sounds and forward placement and some of those things that go along well with vocal instruction. Other systems, they're kind of e's and is and i's and those things kind of in the back of your throat and bright vowels. Dr. Gordon was working with elementary music teachers and choral teachers at the time that wanted to stress what they were reinforcing with their teaching their vowel sounds and for singing. So they tend to go along. Even the do, day, a is a little bit, it's not e or I. Those happen later, but a lot of it's kind of forward and dark placement on those. So that's another thing that I just noticed as a teacher that was a good transfer from the syllable system. All right, let's go ahead and stand now. You put your sticks down. We're going to practice repeating, calm response, and then going around the circle and improvising. So instead of me saying the pattern, you all will say the patterns. And this is something I would do with beginning percussionists, beginning instrumentalists of any kind as well. It's something that everybody can kind of choose their own level. If they can just think of dues, say dues. Dues and due days, mix them up, great. Add some due to dates in there, great. And everybody can kind of tailor the activity to their level of ability. So it's a great way to have differentiation in your lesson plan to do this type of activity. For those of us just going over that in our class here. All right, so this direction first. Let's get our macro beats going on our feet, stepping side to side. Ready, go. Do, 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 do. Say it along with me. Do, do, do. Hands on the do days. Do day, do day, do day, do day, do day, do day, do. Now do to datas. Do to data, 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 do to data. Good. Keep that sound and feel of duple meter going inside of you. I'm going to say some patterns. You come back on back. They'll all be 4 macro beats long. Do, do, day, do to data, do. Do, do, day, do to data, do. Do to data, do to data, do, day, do. Do to data, do to data, do, day, do. Do, day, do, day, do to data, do. Do, day, do, day, do to data, do. Do to data, do, do, day, do.
Do.
And stop. Good. So this time I'm going to start you just like I just did, but then I'm going to pass the pattern off to whoever I happen to next. So be ready to say a pattern and just say whatever comes into your mind. Don't worry about planning something out. This is improvising. So we know we have do's and due days and due to datas. Just whatever comes in your mind with those, say. See if we can have fluency of moving from one to the other where we don't have to kind of stop and restart the rhythm all the time. All right, so just be ready. It could be you at any instant. All right, let's get our motions going. Ready, go. Listen and repeat. Do to data do day, do to data do.
Do to data do day, do to data do.
Do day, do to data do. Do to data do day, do day do. Do to data do day, do do.
Do day, do day, do to data, do to data.
Do day, do day, do to data, do to data. Now I think we mentioned this last time, but if you put fast things at the end, it makes it harder to come in on time, but that's okay, we're ready for that. Just realize that's a higher level difficulty if you're making up patterns to give to younger students. When they're ready for it, they're ready for it. But at first, you notice I gave you all patterns that ended with do at the end, so you have time to think, breathe, and come in on the next response. Excellent, you guys are doing great. So as long as we're up, let's do triple meter. The difference between triple meter is what? And duple meter.
3.
The macrobeat is split into 3 parts now. Does anybody remember the syllables that we use for in Gordon's system for triple meter?
Do-da-dee?
Do-da-dee, yeah, that's right. So let's go ahead and do, what's that?
I have my
You have it right in front of you? All right, well there you go. That's a great way to remember. Have it written right in front of you, right? So let's go ahead and start slower macrobeat because by the time we get to divisions, they're going to be faster. There's 6 on a beat step 4, right? So here's our feel. And just kind of think of swaying back and forth more than marching or stepping now. Ready and go. Do, 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 do. Do-da-dee, 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 do-da-dee. Good, let that sink in. Yeah, good. Now let's take a little break in the action here. I meant to do this before we started. Let's practice saying the divisions. So it's do-da-dee with a ta after each one. Let's just do it one at a time. Do-ta-da-ta, dee-ta. 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 Do. Yeah, we got it. All right. Now, let's put those on with the movement. Ready and go. Do, 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 do. Do-da-dee, 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 do-da-dee. Do-ta-da-ta, dee-ta, do-ta-da-ta, dee-ta, do-ta-da-ta, dee-ta, do-ta-da-ta, dee-ta. Listen, then repeat. Do, do, do-da-dee, do.
Do, do, do-da-dee, do.
Do-da-dee, do-da-dee, do, do.
Do-da-dee, do-da-dee, do, do.
Do-da-dee, do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do-da-dee, do.
Do-da-dee, do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do-da-dee, do.
Do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do. Do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do.
Do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do. Do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do.
Do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, 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 do.
Do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, 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 do.
All right. Now, you'll notice that I'm chanting is what they call it when you're saying rhythm patterns. Chanting rhythms, but I'm not going do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, do. I'm going do-ta-da-ta-dee-ta, 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 do. And just by my voice inflection, I'm teaching phrasing at that point as well. And the students will, what they hear, they'll tend to echo back. So again, they're not thinking as individual notes, they're thinking of them as one whole, just like we would if we said a whole sentence in that way. So this is kind of a rhythm sentence, as it were. So think about that as you're saying them too, and make your voice be expressive. It doesn't have to be the exact same way as each other, but just like you were saying a sentence and having your voice pitch, inflect, and emphasis and things like that. All right, here you go. This time I will start, and then I'll have you do the same thing, where I just have one at a time be the leader on the pattern. So what are our options? Do, da dee, do ta da ta dee ta. Yeah, there we go. Do ta da ta dee ta. And if you mess up the syllables, we're not going to stop and correct it right now. Just everybody else say it the right way. When everybody's looking at you, sometimes those do ta da ta dee ta just kind of fly out of your mind. I've noticed. All right. Here we go. Movement first. Good. Listen and repeat. Do da dee do ta da ta dee ta do.
Do da dee do, do ta da ta dee ta do.
Now, is that an improvise or was that a read?
I was making sure I was going to say do to
Okay. I just saw you looking down at your paper. I'm saying that's great, but we're trying to improvise right now. All right, and I just broke your pattern and everything. I'm sorry. I just yes. For right now, we will read in just a minute. But for right now, we're just trying to do it all orally. Ready again. And ready now. Go. Do da dee do da dee do ta da ta dee ta do.
Do da dee do da dee do.
Do da dee do da dee do.
Do da dee do ta dee ta dee. Do da dee do.
Do da dee do ta da ta dee ta do da dee do. Do da dee do do ta da ta dee ta do. Just curious, why the giggle at the end?
I felt like I said it weird. Like it's
Oh,
weird.
okay.
I was like, oh, is that
Yeah.
right?
It does, right? When everybody's looking at you or listening to you, all of a sudden it just kind of,
It just sounds wrong.
it's weird. I don't know what it is, but it comes quickly. So we spent a lot of time learning both duple and triple almost at once. Any idea why? Caleb has just read about this week, so I'll let one of the rest of you answer. Like, why wouldn't I just practice duple until we've gone through tons of kinds of rhythms and we're really comfortable with it before I throw something new at you? And it's not just you, I do the same with students.
Is it just so they're familiar with it before they're like set in? But like if you know what I mean, like triple seems like a totally different animal if you've only ever done duple.
I don't know if you can remember reading in 3/4 time for the first time, but it just felt so wrong because everything you'd done had been in 4/4 for a year or a half a year or whatever. So yeah, that's definitely part of it for sure. Any other ideas? So there's a principle in psychology of learning that goes something like, you learn what something is partly by learning what it's not. You don't really know what something is until you also know what it's not. So to really learn something, to compare and contrast it with something else is an important part of that process. So at least having one other meter fairly quickly will help you learn both of them better. And also it will really emphasize the audiation building aspect instead of just the imitating, because now there's not just a few syllables that work one way. They can work a lot of different ways, and you have to really think about what you're doing at the time to get it to do right. So, but yeah, that's one of the things about Dr. Gordon's research that made it into the way that people teach these ideas. That's really helpful for any kind of teaching. You define it, you give examples of it, but then you also compare and contrast it to other things that are similar but different or opposite. And that's where synonyms, antonyms, all those ideas come into in literature as well. It's even a scriptural principle in one way. Think of the Garden of Eden. Did man really know goodness before the fall? In one way they did, and in the best way they did. Was Satan's temptation accurate? Would they be more knowledgeable once they disobeyed God and had a sin nature? Yeah. And they would also have something to contrast it to. So in that way, that's true, but it came with a terrible price that he didn't happen to mention at the same time, right? So I'm not saying that was the right thing for them to do, but I'm just saying even way back at the beginning, you can see we really learn more about something by what it's not as well. Now I'm sure God would have given every opportunity for them to know just as much as they needed to and nothing more about goodness. So that's not what I'm saying here, but it's just after I learned this principle, I was reading through the Bible, I'm like, in a way, we can even see that happening right back to the very beginning. So yes.
Well, it's kind of like you can't appreciate one without the other, sort of.
As much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that was the temptation, saying, hey, there's this whole existence out here that you don't even understand or know about. You can know this too, and without the penalty. And that was the temptation. But in a positive light, we can use that same principle in education. If we only ever warm up in choir with major vocalises, they learn major. But if we can alternate major and minor, or even throw in some of the other ones, it will really just expand and increase their understanding of how pitch and harmony and all of those things work, and really develop their audiation. Same thing in instrumental ensemble. Almost from the very beginning, I would teach them duple and triple meters, major and minor tonalities, and songs in all four. In fact, I had a series of songs that you just adjusted the song a little to make it to the next one. And so they had the labels with the sounds in their mind right from the beginning that way. So that was a pretty cool thing that I got from a curriculum that's written along these principles too. All right, let's do some reading now. Let's go to Burns 18 through 22. We are going to apply exactly what we've been doing in our duple meter patterns for reading now. Did you bring your Burns books with you today?
I may have forgotten.
Okay, that's fine. You guys can share on this one. And yes, so from now on, bring this to class. We'll do a little bit of this almost every class, at least a little bit. Some more than others. And let's start today, since you guys are very comfortable reading quarter notes and eighth notes. I'm not going to mess with that, but let's just talk for a second about then after they have experienced duple meter rhythms, experienced triple meter rhythms, then it's time to teach them to read these things, right? So then we just have to say, okay, this note is what's going to get our dues. These are going to be the due days. These are going to be the due datas, and we can start to explain some of the traditional notation to them, things to them that we can call them quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, whatever. It's not important to explain why they're called that as much as it is to just know how to connect it to the sounds in their mind right at the beginning. Then as we go along later, we can fill in some of the details. But let's look at page 18 there, and let's go to line number 2. So we haven't gotten to rest. I talked about 5 rhythm functions. We've only done 3. We've done macrobeats, microbeats, divisions. The next 2 would be elongations and rest. I decided to just go on with triple today for a little longer instead of getting to that, but we'll do those next time. So rest, you just do the syllable except you think it instead of say it. And for students when they're first learning rest, it's helpful to do a 3-step process. Have them say it as if it were a note, have them whisper it, and then have them audiate it. So let's practice that with the pattern in measure 3, just saying it first, then we'll say and play. Ready, go. Do day, 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 do day. Good, let's do those first 2 measures again and just whisper the rest. Ready, go. Do day, do. Do day, do. Do day, do. Do day, do. Good, now let's just audiate the rest. Ready, go. Do day, do. Do day, do. Do day, do. Do day, do. And by doing that, now something's in their mind on the rest instead of just waiting for the next thing to happen. So you put a physical thing there, a feeling of saying a syllable, eventually a feeling of playing that you're just imagining instead of doing. So by doing that, it solves tons of rhythmic problems that come from rest. Rest just drive young students crazy and teachers crazy because unless they're taught to audiate the rest and to imagine the sensation of what would be there, they're just kind of, a lot of them are just guessing and trying to come in at the right, after a little while. You know, it's just this random thing that's a little bit of time and then a come back in instead of an exact thing. All right, so let's read down through now. We're not going to practice saying each one. If I were working with young students, I would have them say each line and then play each line. And anytime they came to something new, I'd talk about it, explain it, we'd practice it. For right now today, let's just read down through, and let's start with example number 6. 6, 7, 8 in the summary. Do, say and play. Do, play, do, play, do. 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 With my students, I'd always jokingly refer to rest as solo makers, because it seemed like somebody in the group would play a solo. They weren't really paying attention on the rest. Yes.
Do you want us to pay attention to the right and left
Um,
at this point?
Yeah, it's just alternating at this point, so it doesn't matter a whole lot, but for us, we're just alternating. Eventually, we'll be doing patterns where it's not alternating, so it'll be a little different. For right now, just think mainly about alternate your strokes, but think about the rhythm, syllables, and coordinating with good playing, posture, all those things we've been talking about. Now, 7, I'll give you a count off, and then our first no, quote unquote, is a rest, right? So think day, do, day. Think that do, and we'll see how we can do it. Ready, go. Day, do, day. Good. Now let's say the first 2 rhythms here. Make your voice continue on the quarter note, and then we'll do the summary and be done for a day. Make your voice continue on the quarter note up until the rest. Ready, go. Do, day, do, 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 day, do, day. Play the next 2 measures now. Ready, go. Do, day, do, do, day, do, and summary. You'll notice we get 16th notes on 20, same type of thing. In your own practice, just practice saying and playing everything, and these syllables will get really comfortable really fast for you. Any questions about anything coming up? We don't have class on Monday, so I'll see you on Friday. Just take a look at what's on your syllabus for what to practice, and then if anybody has any questions, you can stop in and ask me or email me. But looks like you guys have a great start to everything. Just keep it up.